So what separates a good smart device versus a bad one? Reliability. This is especially true when it comes to a smart device for a door. It's got to be reliable and secure enough to allow me to sleep at night without worry. So on my search for the best smart lock on the market, I was recommended from a friend to pick up the Schlage Encode Plus smart lock. This is probably one of the most expensive ones on the market, but I truly believe you get what you pay for, and I'd rather not cut corners on my family's security. So here's my 5-month review of the Schlage Encode Plus smart lock and if it's worth the price. Starting with the installation, you will need a screwdriver, but Schlage gives you all the other hardware you need to install it. It even includes the batteries. First thing I did was remove the old door lock by unscrewing the inside lock, then unscrewing the faceplate. Then I popped out the outside lock with the key. This allowed me to turn and loosen the deadbolt. Then I carefully yanked off both the inside and outside base plates. And lastly, unscrewed the old strike plate on the wall. Then for the installation, I simply worked backwards. I installed the new strike plate, then the new faceplate and deadbolt into the door. Then I placed the new touchscreen lock on the front and through the deadbolt hole while also feeding the cable through. Then I installed the back plate and fed the cable through the hole. Once done, I connected the cable to the connector of the lock, then screwed the lock to the inside of the door. Then I pulled out the battery holder and inputted the included 4 AA batteries and popped that back in. I slid the cover on, and that is it for the installation. Super easy. Now for the app and HomeKit setup, I downloaded the Schlage app, and when open, it asked me to agree to their terms and privacy conditions. I click sign in, since you need the account to use the lock with HomeKit, and there's actually additional features in the Schlage app that you'll want to use. It then asked me to create an account and set a verification code. Once verified, I was able to add the lock by clicking I own the lock. Then it asked me to locate my program code on the lock with my camera. This code was underneath the lock cover, and then I just scanned the QR code. It automatically found the lock I installed, then asked me if it is installed. Then it asked me to press and release this button on the lock to start the pairing process. Once paired, it asked me to connect to my Wi-Fi or use Bluetooth. I decided to connect my Wi-Fi here, but later on it connected via Thread when setting up with HomeKit. Now it doesn't advertise anywhere on the website about having Thread, but it definitely does, and I can confirm this in the Eve app where I see all my Thread devices. Once connected, it asked me to choose a location name. I put front door for this lock, and then I made an access code and code name. Then it asked me to open my door slightly while the lock configures itself, and after a few seconds, I was connected to the Schlage app. It then asked me if I want to connect my home assistant, so of course I chose Apple HomeKit. I hit continue to step 2 to connect the lock to HomeKit. I chose the lock I wanted to connect, and then I located the HomeKit code on the lock. But the QR code was not scanning, and I think because that QR code is only for the Schlage app, but I ended up picking up the lock when I tapped my phone on the lock. It then asked me to type in my setup code, which is the HomeKit code on the lock. Then about a minute later, it finally connected. I then chose the lock location to entrance, then named the lock to front door. It then showed me that I could use home keys so I could tap the lock or unlock the door. Then it talks about access codes for guests, and when I hit continued, I got an error saying unable to add access code. More on this in a sec, but other than that, that was it. However, when I went into the home app, it was not responding and not working. After multiple attempts to connect, I ended up restarting my router and network, and then it immediately started working. It then showed responding in the home app and also allowed me to add more access codes. Overall, besides a connection hiccup, which was personal internet issue, the installation and setup was smooth. Even if you have never installed a door lock before, if you could follow directions, then you could do this on your own. As for the aesthetic, the matte black looks amazing. It actually matches the outside door handle I have perfectly. And compared to some other smart locks on the market, I feel like this one blends in and looks like an everyday lock. It comes in 4 colors: matte black, satin nickel, bright chrome, and aged bronze. It also has 2 different styles, and a century trim, which is the one I chose, and then there's a camelot trim. So you have options to fit whatever aesthetic you are going for. Now getting to the smart features of the lock, I can unlock and lock this door in 7 different ways. First way is with the HomeKit app. When I click into the lock, I have the ability to unlock and lock with a touch. In the HomeKit app, I also get some other features. I can see the status of the lock, which shows the battery life. At the time of this video, I have 98% of battery left because I recently changed the batteries. I ended up having to do this 4 months in at around 20% battery life because it started to jam when using the app to open the door. But as soon as I changed the batteries, it started working perfectly again. So I probably had another month or two until it was completely dead. So I would say about 6 months is what you could get on a normal use. But if you ever have any issues, maybe it's because the battery life is low. But in my opinion, 2 to 3 times a year to replace a battery is not bad. You also get managed access, which allows you to invite other users to use the lock. You could add a resident, which will allow them to access the lock in their home app. You'll only want to do this for people living in your home. You can also add a guest where you can give them their own PIN code. You could also set up a schedule of when the PIN will work. And then if you no longer want them to have access, you could delete it. You could add this lock to automation. So if you set a good night scene, you could have it automatically lock the door so you always know it is done. Then you could also customize the notifications you get so you know when the door is locked and unlocked. Now the HomeKit app allows me to open the door 3 other ways. I can use my phone to tap the lock using HomeKey in my Apple Wallet, but I could also use HomeKey on my Apple Watch to unlock the door. This is great because when I go for a run, I don't like to carry my phone and can use my cellular watch to get notifications and open it and lock the door. And I could also use Siri to unlock and close the door. However, when I tested using Siri with my HomePod, it did require me to confirm using my phone, which is how it actually should be since I would not want anyone to be able to open my door. Outside of HomeKit, you can open the door with the touchscreen, so I don't need my phone or watch. Simply type in the code to open the door, and then to lock, you could simply hit the lock symbol. This is something you could set up in the Schlage app. This is also the quickest way to lock the door when you leave. Schlage also gives you a key, so if you want to unlock and lock it the old school way, then you have the option for that. And the last way is using the Schlage Home app. On the home screen, you will see a big red lock. This indicates a locked door. Simply press it and it will open the door and turn green. But my favorite part about this app is the history tab at the bottom. Here you see the history of when the lock was opened and closed, and you can even see how they opened it. Was it by the app or using specific guest codes? But the history only does go back about 4 weeks. And then back on the home screen under settings, you could turn on built-in alarm. So if someone tries to force entry, a little alarm will go off. You can add an auto lock, so if you forget to lock it, it will automatically lock the door for you. You could do a one-touch lock, so you don't have to re-enter a code to lock the door. And you could turn on and off the beep noise when typing in a code. On the Access tab, you could create up to 100 codes for different people or create a virtual key instead so they could use the Schlage app to open and lock the door. So you could have control over your home, Airbnbs, or an office space from your phone. And then lastly, on the home page, you could see the battery life as well. Now overall, my experience these last 5 months have actually been great. The lock does what it says it does, and most importantly, it has been reliable. It's been so reliable and easy to use that it is wife approved, which I feel like is always a big thing when it comes to smart devices. You guys know how that can go. As for the cost, I do think you are buying the brand here. Schlage has been making locks since 1920, so they have the credibility of making well-built and reliable locks, meaning you could trust it to perform like it should. So for someone who doesn't want the worry of using a newer company and hoping it is reliable, I think it is worth the cost. And at the time of this video, there is no Matter version out yet for the Schlage lock. I'm sure there'll be one in the near future, but it already supports the main smart assistant, so you could feel confident buying even without Matter. And if you guys want to get your hands on this lock, then I'll leave a link in the description below. And subscribe if you want to see more smart home videos. See y'all in the next one. Peace.